Today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to drywall a room. I'm doing this in my basement because honestly, it's the hardest part of the house to drywall. We've got bulkheads to deal with, we got crooked ceilings and plenty of other surprises. So no matter what room you're working in, you're going to be successful the first time. Rule number one, before you drywall, consider all the things that you have yet to finish before you close up. Did you run all your wires? Have you done your soundproofing? Have you thought through about your windows and finishing? Do you have blocking for a television in that room? Rule number two, you do your ceilings first, you do your walls second, and then any bulkheads last. Rule number three, not time to cheap out. Get the right tools. You're gonna make so much money and earned equity on that home of yours. If you're gonna do a big project, get the right tools. Get a drywall cutout saw. A drywall screw gun. This will save you a lot of time and aggravation, and it has a depth setter on it so you don't tear through the paper. For smaller projects, consider getting a drywall dimpler bit. For just a few bucks, you can also set the screw to the right depth and not tear through the paper. Get yourself a spray foam can so that you can fill all your gaps and cracks. A cordless hand planer. This right here will take care of any raised surfaces. If you have any humps or bumps, you can get rid of them as you go. Laser level. You can set this up, get a perfect laser line so that you can install bulkheads and make them perfect every time. Extra pair of hands if you're working alone. Use clamps. Grab yourself a rasp, because when you're making cuts that are going to be exposed, you want to have a clean, perfect cut. I use one of these every time I'm cutting because I don't want you to have to learn how to master the art to cut your drywall freehand. Make sure you got a good tape and an Olfa knife, at least a 23mm. Keep them sharp. A dull knife is a dangerous knife. Rule number four is figure out if it's a two-man or a one-man operation. If you're working alone, there's tips and tricks. You can use blocks to help hold things up on the ceiling, or you can get a drywall lift. Rule number five, always stagger your joints. If you're gonna have a joint on a wall here, that means you need another joint underneath. Go at least 2 studs over so that after you're done all your mudding and taping, those joints will be invisible. Number 6. When you're installing your walls, start and do the bottom first. I know it's contrary to the way the pros do it. Pros are working in brand new houses. In renovation, your ceilings aren't always straight, and your biggest threat is the gap at the bottom. If your drywall touches your concrete, it soaks up moisture and goes to mold. Put a spacer on the floor, set the drywall first. Now you've got something level and square that you can measure up to the ceiling, cut whatever weird shapes you have, and you will be much more successful. Rule number 7, whenever you're working around doors and windows, you want to have the drywall continuous around the framing. If you set up your drywall joints in the same place where you have framing joints, you're guaranteed to have cracks. Rule number 8, factory edge to factory edge. When you're doing a butt joint, then you can stitch your drywall together and you are not going to have any cracking over time. Rule number 9 is the 5-screw rule. That for every 4 feet of drywall, you got a screw at the joint, a screw in the middle, screw at the top, one here and one here. I have to add a few more screws to that sheet. And rule number 10, all of these rules can be broken if you know how to tape. A lot of the mistakes that you make, you can easily fix. In order to understand everything I'm talking about, we're gonna have to take you from right to the very end, so then everything starts to go, aha moments will start to appear as the video goes across, all right? Step number 1 when you're gonna drywall is you have to do an inspection. And here are the things you're looking for. Consider things like soundproofing. You know, you wanna go around and check all your ceiling cavities. We're gonna throw another little bit of soundproofing measure over here. I've got pot lights going in here, which means I'm gonna be wanting to put in one of my plates. We screw it in place right center of the lines. We measure, we mark, we install. We also want to take a look at boxes. This is for the smoke alarm. So I've got strapping plus room for 5/8 so that this sits flush with the hole when it's finished. We have bulkhead, which means we're going to ignore all of this for now and get to that later. We've also got a heat duct over here. And to see the end from the beginning, I like to use these little round dampers. These are awesome. They have little clips on them and they squeeze inside the pipe, and that allows you to control how much airflow comes in and out of your room just by opening or closing this. You can use that system to help balance the home. Once we're done with all of that, and we want to consider cables. Do you have your Ethernet where you want it? You might want to bring in TV cables. You might even consider, hey, I'm going to mount a TV and put some 2x8 blocking on. Also, what about your window? Are you going to be getting power operated window blinds? You're going to need an 18-2 wire to the top right corner of your window area. Just think through the end from the beginning on the entire build. Drywall means closing. Closing means no more access. So just take a deep breath, and then once you've got all of those issues addressed, then it's ready to move forward to the first part of the drywall, which is the ceilings. We're going to address a couple of our issues, some insulation. So here's my plate. Put my measurements off the walls to my center location. These plates have a 0 mark and a notch, so it's very easy to line up the center on it. That one's done. Matt's going to get the insulation in, and that'll be inside the bulkhead at that point, right? So we're going to be good. Now, I've got sewer, I got heat runs, I've got cold air returns. We're going to be dropping a huge box all the way down. So here's my heat run. Let me just pull this down a good chunk so it'll be nice and flush. I'm going to be using this product right here. It's called All Round. Basically, I'm gonna be looping it up and over and then screwing it in place. I'm gonna be tightening it back the other direction here. Now that's all secure. At this point, I'm also gonna put one screw right on the side just to hold it into my strapping so that it's not moving around during installation. Beautiful, okay. All right, step 1 is done. Moving on to step 2, which is always do your ceilings first. So the rule is this: ceilings, then your walls, then your bulkhead areas, okay? A lot of guys are teaching this backwards. What we have here is we have a ceiling, and then I've got a sewer pipe, and then ductwork, and then I have a ceiling. The dimensions of this box are completely subject to you. And this little wall right here, this is a great natural divider. If I brought my box over here, and then up right here, I'd have this weird looking cavity going on. I'd got all kinds of weird lines. We're just gonna bring our drywall cut up over straight to this point. That's 4 feet. That's the size of a sheet. No extra work. Framing a bulkhead is not like structural work. It's simple. So it's okay to have extra drywall in the ceiling, but what you don't want is to come up short. The reason I got these numbers here is so I can find this hole after I put the sheet up. The other thing I need to know is where my strapping is, okay? So we're gonna mark the center of all the straps that we see, okay, on both ends. This one is going to be 2 feet. Oh my God, 2 feet, 1 mark. Whenever you're measuring for the ceiling, try to be as close to the ceiling as you can. If you measure at waist height and the walls aren't level, you'll get your number way off. So our sheet is going to be cut something like this. The door, and then adjusted like this. The secret to drywall is always measuring from a square location. You don't have one, you create one, but we always want to have a square location, measuring this way or measuring this way. And when we get down to here, we're assuming that's square as well. So our first thing we're gonna do is cut the length, and then we'll get these 2 numbers translated on there as well. The trick is, you gotta visualize upside down, right? So this sheet gets translated in that way. Now we can go translate that information over onto our drywall. So we'll cut the whole sheet at 1/16, and then we'll put those other numbers on there. What you want to do is just hold this on here with your thumb, a little pressure with your foot so it doesn't move around, and we're going to score the paper. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and you'll see the pros in the videos. They'll just take their measuring tape and they'll just hold their blade to the tape. It's a little dangerous, so what I'm teaching you is a way that, as a homeowner, you can be successful every time. Now, because we're using soundproofing, our ceiling is made up of 5/8 drywall, and that is a little bit more difficult to work with because it has fiberglass fibers inside the compound that's in between the paper. You gotta score the paper, and then you gotta cut through some of the gypsum, okay? There we go, now we got our length. So there's a difference between an exact measurement and a drywall measurement. Every time you're installing drywall, wherever you finish, the next piece covers the last piece. And so you wanna build yourself in a little bit of mercy. Somewhere between 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. And then you'll never be fighting with your install if things aren't perfectly square in the foundation, as far as the walls and the ceiling and the framing. Since the framers never make anything square, you don't assume it's perfect. You always give yourself a little mercy. Now we got 2 options for cutting this. You can use your knife and you can score it a few times, finally work your way through to the other side. You can use a handsaw, but I'm gonna suggest that on a project like this, you're gonna need to wanna buy this tool because there's more than one location that you're gonna use it. And if you're gonna have it, you might as well do all your cutting with it because it saves a ton of time and energy. It's just a scroll saw tool. We're gonna be using this all day for almost every application. And that makes quick work of everything. It's worth the money. Now we're ready to go and install this bad boy. I gotta come in from the side here. There we go. Okay. I got the whole sheet, brother. Okay, now we gotta slide tight to the beam though. Okay. That's as close as our square is gonna get us. All right, now we're gonna be using 1 and 5/8 screws. I can't do this forever, by the way, so you might wanna. Okay, and we gotta go a little deeper here. Oh, that's way too deep now. What the heck? That's not even holding the screw. Okay, I can't do this when you're laughing. Put it down. Put it down. Didn't even give me any mercy, man.
I forgot about that bit.
What happened here is because the measurement was too exact, and you're going to run into this, so this is a great lesson to learn. I couldn't get that to close properly because the header's got a bit of a twist to it. So the screw didn't hold it tight, so it fell through the paper of the face. I'm trying to tighten it up. There's a hole over there. She just fell right off the screws. I've got this edge here. It's just too tight. You can see it up on the header. This drywall dust. What I want to do is I want to bring this back good solid 1/8 of an inch here in that corner. This drywall rasp will make quick work of any of this. You got to go your way a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. There's my black line. Oh, I know I got it now. Now we can adjust the depth setters to make sure our screws are going to carry the load properly. So we got to find our pencil marks. Every 16 inches we want to put a screw. Don't get stretching that out. So we have a fair amount of screws in the ceiling now. First box of the day. And remember, this one hangs low, so we're gonna go in, run to the side till we identify it, jump the edge, and then we'll go counterclockwise on the outside. That's why you aim for the middle, because sometimes you miss. Always do this while it's fresh in your mind. If you wait till later, you're gonna lose your measurements. We have one sheet up. All right. So that's that half of the ceiling. Now we're gonna do this side. Nice and simple. We have bulkheads, like I was mentioning. We're gonna try to keep the line nice and straight. Over all of my years, I've noticed that the more we try to follow the bulkheads and the cold air, the heat, and create as much open ceiling as possible, it has no value. Trying to do all the extra corners, it's just extra things to stare at and to critique how well the drywall work is. If you keep your lines nice and straight, you have one edge, one corner, life is good. So we're gonna just measure across, and I'm gonna make 3 cuts exactly the same size, because if I go over the full length sheet to here, my room is too long and I'll have to add another piece. But this is the short side of the drywall, and that's going to be 5/8 all the way across. There is no dimple, there's no adjustment, there's no tapered edge. And so we don't have the luxury of being able to have those tapered edges with the mud and the paper tape finished with mud nice and smooth. This is exactly 5/8. And then right here, it gets thinner. You see that airspace in behind? That's what we can fill with our mud and our paper. If we add it here, there is no dip, there's no dent. And so then we have to build out on top of it. But because the ceiling is so low, you're gonna see it. So it's better to add a little bit more joint and have it with the tapered edge of the drywall. It's enough that we can add our mud and our paper tape and another coat of mud so that we can fill all that nice and flush and get a great look. So I'm gonna cut 3 pieces all the same. We'll cut all 3 and then we'll go install them all. This is easier than it looks once you've cut the paper. Your blade has something to follow as far as like a guide. All right, now we got all 3. So same thing, let's make sure we got all of our measurements written down. This is for the light, that's for the light. I need a dimension over here to rip this out. Again, I want to mark center of all of my strap locations. This wall is 12 foot 1.5 inches, so that's more than 3 pieces. Just so you know, our design here, this is going to be wall-to-wall closet and be all millwork. So the joint that goes up here, you're not going to see. We're just going to cut a 1.5 inch filler after the fact. Now we're ready to go. We have all of our measurements. We got all of our tools. All right, we want to just screw the 4 corners first, so we can pick up the weight. If you're moving and jiggling, then the drywall will shake off the screw heads. Here we go. That one's done. Grab the next one. I'll throw a few more screws in. Actually, can you put that one on last because it's damaged? If you have damage on your drywall, guys, consider your taping. And if you have a place that you can hide it, that's a great place for a corner. If you put damage on the drywall in the middle of your ceiling, extra work. So, got it. Okay. Where the strapping ends, it splits really easily because some of these straps finish right here. Just back this screw up a few inches. Our ceiling is basically installed. All we gotta do is our 3 cutouts, and then we're gonna go through a bunch of more rules that make more sense when you see us installing on the wall. So what I like to do is I like to do the both ends because that marks the strap, and then I like to look down to the middle, and then I fill in the sides. The next rule is every piece of drywall where there's a 16-inch on center framing needs 5 screws. Good habit to get into. In commercial applications or where you're putting in a secondary living suite, it's actually required by code. And that is to make sure the drywall doesn't fall down during a fire under extreme heat. If it's good enough for code in a commercial space, it's good enough for a residential space. Having a little extra strength on the ceiling is a good thing. How's your gun working there, man?
I've never used one like this before, so.
Takes a little bit of getting used to it. You gotta be perfectly perpendicular. If you're even out 1 degree, you'll fold it over because it's a Phillips head. Here's a great trick for marking your ceilings for all your hole cutouts for your pot lights. Now, I'm measuring off the wall. My number's 29 inches, so I'm gonna hold the pencil between these 2 fingers, grab my tape, and then measure, put that on the ceiling, and then I can actually mark it while I'm holding it. That's my spot right there. Now all those holes probably need a little fine tuning, but I'm just gonna use the handsaw to get that done later. They're marked, we know we're not gonna lose anything, so as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished. All right, so now we're moving on to the walls, and we're gonna start with this one right here. It's a separation wall. It should be relatively straightforward. Our drywall is longer than the space, so we'll just stack one on top of another. And this is where my technique that I'm teaching you goes against traditional knowledge. We're gonna go bottom to top. And then that's when the drywall world goes crazy. We've got a couple of really good reasons for that. In all of the basements that I've been to where a homeowner's done their own drywall, they all make the same fatal mistake, and that is the drywall is always in direct contact with the concrete. Most people aren't pouring floor leveler in their basement before they build. They should be. You should be too, because the flooring that's on the market today requires extremely flat floors so that the joints don't come unlocked. So floor leveling is an essential in the marketplace today. That means that when they hang their drywall, if they put it up to the ceiling, they got a nice straight line here, they cut the drywall, they stick it in, and inevitably, at some point in this room, there's gonna be a high spot in the floor that the drywall is touching. That's gonna pull moisture out of the concrete, that's pulling moisture out of the ground, and it's gonna go moldy. Always happens. There's a reason why the code requires pressure treated bottom plates. These are our spacers. You can use plywood, you can use even a piece of drywall if you like. I like this because it can compress, so when I hang the drywall, I can still pull it out easily enough, okay? Reason number two, let's say we have a nice long wall, okay? Here's our wall, and we're gonna be 20 feet. So I'll need a 12-foot sheet of drywall, and then an 8-foot sheet of drywall, and then a 12-foot sheet of drywall, and an 8-foot sheet of drywall. Sounds really reasonable, doesn't it? Over time, there's always that floor joist wall, and it's got a scoop. So what happens is this. You put on your first sheet, okay? And then the next sheet follows the ceiling. And then you've got gaps here, and you've got gaps here. And then you put on the next sheet. Well, I wanna go stagger my joints. Now I got a gap here, and then I gotta, it's just a mess. And so by doing it this way, you eliminate all of these gaps. I know that's exaggerated, but it's true. You're gonna have a bowed ceiling, you gotta go bottom up. It's a lot easier to adjust the ceiling, because square is the goal here. So I can put the bottom down, my factory joints nice and tight, all my gapping, my spacing, my corners, everything's nice and tight. The only issue I have is right at the ceiling. Well, that's not a big deal if you know how to tape. And then we'll show you a couple of tricks while we're installing around the room so you can get it perfectly snug as a bug in a rug, finish at the ceiling. So what we need here is our dimension. Let's go 101 3/4. Now this is the bathroom on the other side. We've put in some insulation for some soundproofing. And then all I wanna do before I get started is just mark on my floor where the middle of my studs are. These markers are a lifesaver and they will help us get an amazing result. And then we can cut the next piece to fit the space that's balanced. Now you are gonna find that using blocks and setting this down is so much easier than trying to hold the drywall against the ceiling at the same time. We'll just kind of lift and kick. Are you nice and snug over there?
Yep.
Why does that stud disappear? Is there something in the way? Here's the problem. This stud is all rounded over. So when I go and add a screw to this drywall later, it's not gonna hit the meat. We're just gonna have to probably add a block here. We're gonna have a hard time getting that screwed in. Same thing. We're going to screw all this on. This is an easy wall because we don't have any plugs. There's nothing to measure down to. It's going in the back of the closet. I'm drawing a line from there to there, and I'm gonna hit the middle. Just let gravity do its thing. And then it's so much easier, because this is all in one field of sight, you can just set that up right in between. Every once in a while, you're gonna hear that. It's not a problem. Most likely hit a knot in the wood. If you need to, you can always come back with a regular drill later. Now here's a little trick for you. Take your 4-inch knife when you're doing your drywall screws and just run it over the surface. Okay, that's how you'd set their depth. Now, the drill gun has a depth setter. Leave them a little more proud. I can go left. That's 3 clicks. Now when I run it, I'm making contact. So the way you set your depth setter, one more notch down, run it over your surface. If you don't hear anything, you're okay. That's not making any contact with the screw. Uh-oh. Well, you got to do some spinning around here. That room is just big enough, isn't it? So we brought the sheet in here so you can see. We're measuring from the top of this sheet, from the bottom up, okay? This is actually 40 3/8. So we're gonna go 40 1/4, okay? I'm gonna double check at the other end. Yep, down here I'm actually 40 1/2. Interesting, isn't it? Let's take this part here and we'll check that one as well. That's closer to 40 3/8 again. So if I wanted to make a straight cut, which is the easiest, I'll show you what I do here. 40 1/2. And then I'm gonna go to 40 3/8 with my pencil. And then I'm gonna go to 40 1/4 by the time I get over here. Now I've got a line I can follow. I don't wanna be in contact with the ductwork, so I'm gonna give myself a little bit extra room, knowing we're gonna be building bulkhead and adding drywall. I've got lots of room here. My drywall is cut there, or if the drywall is cut here, it makes no difference. That's why we do the bulkheads last. So we're gonna come down so that we can clear all of this from there. I'm gonna translate that same number to this side of the sheet, and I'm gonna take my square and draw my line. Now that is my new sheet of drywall. There's a couple of different ways that we can do this. Let me just show you the easiest. We're gonna take our cutting tool. We're gonna hold it off the wall. And we're gonna cut this short side here. And then we're just gonna use the knife to cut the other pieces. That was fun. Okay, so now we're gonna score and cut this. And the secret to doing that is really simple. Don't look at the knife. Set the knife on the line and then look about 3 inches ahead of it the entire time. And your brain will do the job for you, even if you got bad eyesight as you're getting old like I do. Now we just snap these off. Okay, nice and tight into the corner. There, loving it. That's a perfect wall. One thing I want you to know, when you're putting your drywall on, make sure you get the first screw and then go nice and tall on the second one. Until this one's in, you're at danger. If anybody opens a door, creates a change in air pressure, and it'll pull the sheet right off the wall on under your head. I have a tendency when I'm going blind like this, I drift to the left. So then I intentionally drift to the right.
A little counterbalance.
I think my hips are messed up or something. All right, let me show you a trick, guys. I just missed the screw. The stud is over here instead. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back out the screw, change the angle of the screw so that when I drive it in, I'm catching the wood this time. That way, I've screwed it into the drywall and I don't have an extra hole to fill. When you guys change from a 1 5/8 to 1 1/4, you have to also adjust the depth setter on your drill. I don't even understand the science behind it. I just know it happens every single time. And then every one of your screws is gonna be proud. Once you've got the adjustment, perfect every time. Now we're gonna get to have a little bit of fun because we've got a few elements going on in this wall. One of them is I don't have a perfectly built wall here. So here we're kind of screwed up, but then we're back on. Grand scheme of things, it's actually really darn close. 16 in the center is important because drywall is exactly manufactured in increments of that 16. There's 96. Okay, now because we've already put drywall over there, we have to cut the stud. You want the drywall to finish in the middle of a stud. Now if we go with a 10-foot piece, we end up in the middle of the insulation. That's not desirable. So we're gonna put an 8-foot sheet on here. Now, we want that sheet to finish right here on this spot, okay? On the top and on the bottom. Now remember our square rule. That means we're gonna put our drywall down and this should be the square. So this is the top corner of our sheet. So we'll measure down and we'll measure across and then we'll measure across in case there's a slope over here, because if this is our wall and here's our window and right here, frame is made weird, we wanna be able to cut this so that we don't have a huge gap. So maybe instead of 8, we'll measure from here so that we have the ability to cut the angle whatever way it goes, all right? So keep all of this in mind. So we're gonna measure now. So 95 is a little bit much for me. It's just a little bit hanging left. Not a big deal. When I'm cutting this drywall, measure my 95, cut it, clean the edge because you got an uneven surface, and then we're gonna shove it into that corner and everything will be good. It's also consider we have a window here. My window's at 49 inches. Drywall's at 48. If I use one shim on each side, I come up a 1/2 inch shy. And then I'm gonna have another surface here, and then I'm relying on that metal corner bead to do all the work. So what I want is I want my drywall to come right up to this. Now when I put my drywall in this time, I'm gonna use a 1-inch gap off the floor. Now it's more important for your drywall to meet and overlap at these edges so that your corners are nice and strong. For me to have a 1/2 inch or a 1-inch gap at the floor makes no difference. I'm adding a baseboard. It's also very easy for me because I can put on an 8-foot sheet here, fill this with another piece, and then boom, boom, we're done, baby. So I measured from there coming here, I cut over here. Take a look at this uneven surface. What a mess, right? If I just pick this up, set it in place, here's my mark. Could I make that work? Yeah, but I don't have very much wood over here. Yeah, my wall isn't perfectly level. There's a gap growing from 0 to hero. You know a carpenter pencil, that's 1/2 inches wide, that's a 1/4. Now the lead is in the middle, that makes it an 1/8, and that's a 1/4. So I'm a 1/4 wide here, and I'm just gonna run this back with my rasp until all that pencil is gone. This is regular drywall, and so as a result, it's actually a lot quicker. Now, I gotta get my blocks back in place. Now I'm right on my line, evenly spaced all the way to the bottom. Lots of meat for the next sheet to grab onto. I'm really happy with that. I'm so busy teaching, I forgot. I didn't measure off my plugs. Yeah, that would have been a disaster. I'm gonna have to have an electrician come along here and bust holes in my wall to find his plugs. That would suck. Okay, this is my edge. Just gonna measure to the middle again. Now I get the opportunity of a lifetime here. I'm gonna mark my floor as to where my studs are. Every good renovation involves a certain amount of crawling around on your hands and knees. Time for an install. If I put too much pressure on the board by tightening screws, then it breaks as you cut. Now, I drew my line off of here. I'm a little bit shy. I'm gonna go to 35 inches just for good measure. Edge of the tape on my arrow. Rules around plugs. I do not want to see a screw within at least 6 inches of any of these corners. So this is the middle. Yes, there's wood there, but no, you're not allowed to screw there. Finger and thumb, okay? That's as close as I want you to get. And there's a reason for that. When electricians put all these things on, these plastic boxes, they have little tabs. This little plastic is 1/8 of an inch thick. If you put a screw too close to this, then it breaks the drywall. So you want to have your screw far enough away that this one plus this one create compression, make everything nice and clean and pretty, but nothing gets broken, all right? Once you've mastered the art of that, that's it. Now that whole area is finished. One other thing, we don't put any screws here until the next sheet goes on. Just to be clear, this time we're measuring left to right and cutting the right side. We want to have factory edge against factory edge. Look how clean that's cut. When I put my next factory edge against that, there's like a nanometer of a gap, okay? Which is what we need so that we get a really good stitch here. I'll show you that in a second. I am looking at 50 is perfect. I got 1/2 inch drywall, 50 is perfect. Quick shout out in the comment section. What's the answer? Where should I cut this? 49 3/4 is the perfect cut. It's longer, so the gap gets covered by the next sheet, and you don't have to fight in the corner if there's any kind of a bow or warp. That looks pretty good, right? But that's the wrong side. That's not even the factory edge. Factory edge is here. So here's a nice edge. That is, like, there's no gap.
Toy.
So when I put this screw in, the neck...
I don't think the Milwaukee does that, Jeff.
That's confusing with those arrows. Forget the arrows and just put the arrow here and then put the picture there. Yeah. Anyway, back to the lesson. When you have them nice and tight like this, you put a screw on each side, okay? If you do the first side and then you bring the sheet, what you're gonna see is all the drywall breaks and there'll be a little chunk of drywall sticking out everywhere there's a screw. And then the drywall sheet won't fit, but then the joint's also weak. So this is why you have both sheets here before you stitch them together. And when you do it, do the whole sheet. You can get real close to the side now because you're not gonna create a weakness. There is a rule about staggering your joints. If there's no window and you got a 12-foot wall, you want to do a joint about 4 feet from this end. Then you do a 12-foot sheet coming this way and put the other joint way over here. Because this joint is what we call a butt joint. That means there's no dip in the drywall the way it's printed off. So when we add, we're adding mud on the surface and then paper on the surface and then more mud on the surface and then more mud on the surface. We end up stretching it out about 32 to 36 inches. So if the joint right above it is too close, then you have a bump followed by another bump. It's really hard to get rid of that visual effect. But if you stagger them, your eyeball can't see the bump up here and down there at the same time because it's just going like this across the wall. We're not making things flat and smooth. We're fooling the eye into believing that it's flat and smooth. Because we have a window, we don't have to worry about that right now. We can have a joint up here and a joint down here. No one's gonna see it. That's the art of drywall, okay? We'll get the right height, stick it on, cut it out.
Sure.
Call it. Let's see what we got. 39 1/4, 39 1/4, 39 1/4. Now this is gonna be more consistent. This is the outside of the house, okay? So this, hopefully, if it's all the same, is because there's no problem with the foundation. Also means that the floor leveler went in nice. And I'm gonna break my own rule because it's only a rule if there is no window. You'll see it on the next wall. It'll be a lot clearer, with a little bit more demonstration. Oh, and can I just say one more thing real quick to everybody who's watching? There is no such thing as a building code that requires plastic on the walls everywhere in North America. Make sure you're building for your own climate zones. And all the way to the left. Dude, we're a little snug, hold on. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. We can take it off, we can mark it, we can rasp it, or we can just grab a piece of wood. If it's a bad enough bow and you only have one spot of the issue, then what you're gonna end up with is a drywall break, and it's really nasty in a corner. So, we were almost 1.5 inches off the wall. If we were smart, we would have taken a pencil and marked where all these studs were. If you're not sure, grab your laser line, put it on your screws. I told you I drift to the left when I screwed this stuff. And again, I won't screw that until I have that other board there. Now, we're gonna use the RotoZip. Seems almost silly here because I'm only gonna take a 1/4 inch of material. The rule about RotoZips, when we did this one, we went in here we came across to the box, and then we went on the outside of the box, we're going counterclockwise. In this situation, I'm inside the box, so I want to go clockwise. So I actually want to start here and go up and then over. It's because of the way the blade is spinning, it's the least resistance, because it's spinning. I'm always pushing about 5-degree angle. And then when I get done and I hit something, then I'm going to be pushing 5-degree angle. So I'm pushing forward up against that surface the entire time to make positive contact. The height of this bad boy though, there is a discrepancy in this corner. That last joist is higher than every other joist in the room. It's the same on the other side. I'm just going to assume it's the build. It's made in 1974, okay? Nothing's going to be perfect. That's the frustration. We're going to have a gap. We're going to teach them how to fill it. Now that butt joint right here, it's disgusting. Just for fun, I always found that it's easier using one of these regular drills in the corners. Maybe it's a user error, but I can't make those screw guns work in those corners because there's just a little bit of a degree angle. Gonna want to rasp this, get rid of all these. See these huge bumps? This is what I'm talking about. It affects the size of the drywall.
Do we have outlets on this wall? We do.
Oh yeah. Okay, now we got to figure out. Remember, this is a taper joint because it gets thin and then it goes back to full. This is full against full. So this joint, we don't want anywhere within the 32 inches that the mud is going to be. Okay, 1 3/4. Oh, that's perfect. Well, considering all this is bulkhead, and I'm only going to have a little bit of a gap to here, what do you want to do?
Start from the left side.
All 40 and then scribe it. Usually we go left, right, right, left, but let's see. Because we are 2 stub bays over, we are going to have mud finishing here and mud finishing here. That's acceptable. The first coat, we get mud to here. Second coat, we're gonna get about 11 inches on each side of that, all right? And then the last coat will go basically over to 32. And that'll be feathered so tight, it'll just be sanded and blended right in. You won't even see it. Remember, your sphere of optical understanding is really quite small. The sphere of optical understanding.
We just added an 11th rule to the 10 rules of
the optical understanding rule. Oh, we're gonna have to shave just a hair on this side, but that's probably better. All right, here we go. Little foam action coming at you. Okay, oh yeah. We're gonna just put a little bit up here. All right, that's it. There's such a thing in the world as a backer rod, they call it. Whenever you've got a big gap to fill, but you're gonna use silicone or something else like that, you can stuff that in first so it creates a backing. Kind of like using grout and then silicone on the surface in your joints in your shop. This is exactly what that is. It cures up in about 20 minutes or so while I'm working. It's hard, I trim it back. It's like a continuation of the wall. Welcome to the revolution. Ah, breath of fresh air. I got 16 inches and it's just a little tighter over here. 6, 4. Good optical understanding. A little optical understanding there, Matt. Oh, shit. Oh, I need a piece of that wood there. Why don't you throw in a screw over that side first? Oh, we're so far off the wall, it's not even grabbing. Rule number 11. In drywall, if you have to remove a screw, the hole is scratched. You'll never get the proper compression. Once you shotgun a beer, you can't fill it back up and do it again. Look at this, Matt. We're almost at bulkheads. Now we're gonna be able to hang our bulkhead. And the secret to bulkheads is making them strong enough so that they don't move around, right? They gotta be able to handle a little bit of impact. Square to the wall when they're finished. You wanna be on a 1-degree angle towards the inside of the bulkhead. The mud takes it back to square. If I build my bulkhead 90 degrees, and then down here, I have to add a piece of metal, and then I have to have that corner sticking out here a little bit, and then I got a feather back mud. That doesn't look like 90 degrees anymore, does it? This is rule number 6 again. Remember we stagger joints? Rule number 6 also involves this, framing around doors and windows. So up here we have the header, and that is on top of jacks, which is next to the king studs, all right? And that basically means the king stud goes all the way up to the top, then you put in the header, and then the jack stud, it's kind of like to jack it up, goes underneath. This joint right here, because this is all nailed together, traditionally, it's prone to expansion and contraction. And a little bit of movement in the world of drywall causes cracks. So if I just measure this off, all right, 38 inches, that's gonna be a 6-inch piece, great. And I cut it and I stick it in. What I end up with is a crack in the drywall that needs tape. So whenever you have an issue like that, the only way that you can solve it is you make your drywall continuous down until you get to this point on the lumber. And that allows you to have no joints where there's joints on all this lumber. That's how we solve that problem. Now, generally speaking, where the doors are in this particular building, there are no wall cavities, no stud cavities to fill with insulation. It's just the framing. And all of the doors that you're gonna buy are gonna come with a standard size frame depth. It takes into account 1/2-inch drywall with a 2x4 wall with 1/2-inch drywall. And that's how they build that jamb. They'll make it thick enough to cover that issue. If I go add 5/8 drywall on one side of that frame, I mess it all up. And so then everything gets too short, and then you got to add a bunch of wood trims after the fact to build it all out. We don't want to do that. That's just a lot of extra work. So instead of using the drywall screw gun on this situation, I've been working on a little side project that I'm really excited to share with you guys. And we'll talk more about this in a future video. Here we go, 1.25 inches. I'm gonna set the depth first. Here we go. Perfect. So now I'm ready to lay this up in here. As far as this door is concerned, remember, you want your drywall cut as tight as you can. You don't want it bulging out, because then when you go to put your jamb on for your door, you won't have the ability to put shims in behind. So really make sure that this is nice and clean. Take my knife, run that down the side. I'm good to go. Now, this board in behind has a bit of a work to it. And so we don't want to have our drywall coming across and then right off the edge. Because what'll happen is we'll put our corner bead on, we'll nail it, and then this drywall would have to be bent around to that. Eventually it'll end up cracking. What we're gonna do is take the hand planer, find the thickest spot, give it a plane. Eventually he'll just rip that all down.
That'll be fine.
I think that's more than fine. So we have one other issue I wanted to show you here. The stud that's in the wall right now is rounded over, like off the edge of a tree, okay? So it's like just bark. You can actually see that there was bark here. They cut all this at the mill. They're trying to make lumber out of really young trees nowadays. So what ends up happening is we end up with all this junk. When we're down there trying to screw that drywall on, screw's gonna hit that corner and it's gonna direct like this. And it might even feel like it catches. But if it hits that corner and then digs a little chunk right out of the edge of that bark, we're gonna end up with a crack, and that's gonna bother you. Gonna be proactive. So now when I'm working, I'm just gonna go like this, and that tells me not to try to screw into that corner. I can just bump it out. Alrighty. When everything isn't perfectly square, cutting in advance always leaves you a really bad outside corner. And because we're going to be putting outside corner beads on here, I want to make sure that the drywall is cut after installation. Get a nice clean edge, just like we did with this door. One of the rules is how to make a bulkhead. We're going to be constructing ours with a couple different building materials in mind. We're going to build something that stays incredibly strong and square and also soundproofs this room. So we are going to be sacrificing a little bit of ceiling height for soundproofing. If I make my bulkhead 11 inches, I have about 1.5 inches space underneath here. I can then use this insulation board underneath all of my bulkheads, so I can have a complete solid soundproof layer underneath all this ducting. The goal is to see, am I cutting off my view through the window? If I'm cutting off the window and it starts to feel too low, I'm only adding drywall and then my flooring. I'm still gonna have 4 inches of space, but this is a basement from '74. You don't get the luxury. And I'm gonna choose soundproofing over the height of my ceiling all day long. Go to the store, grab yourself a $5 piece of metal like this. It's in the structural hardware department. And we are going to just, now I've got something for my laser level to stick to. Let's have a peek. All right, and I can check off my tape where that line is. Like right now I am super low. So I'm going to measure right off the floor joist to the duct here, which is the lowest part in the room. So now we've got our mark, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my screw in here at the joist location. The board is 2.5 inches thick. The strapping is 1/2 inch, that makes it 3. Those are 3.5 inch screws. So I'm 1/2 inch into the actual joist itself, plus whatever I bury the head, which means that if there's any electrical or plumbing running around, it's all at least 1.5 inches above my joist location. So I don't run risk of having any damage. Having said that, before you insulate, make sure all the penetration through your joists are in compliance so that you can do things like this without risking any major bodily harm. If you're a fan of the channel, maybe you've seen years ago, I did some bulkheads and I showed a couple of different techniques. What we're doing is we're creating a screw surface. That's all this is.
Simple process for this stuff here.
8 1/4.
Okay. And then we go like this.
And that gives us a perfect corner because we've got 1.5 inch material here, 2.5 above it, so that we can attach all of our drywall to. Got a really nice fit. That's not going anywhere. Now you'll see, I've got different gaps all over the place. I gave Matt a measurement that's a little bit less than I wanted because I know, even though you're good with a saw, you know the numbers end up being a little bit off everywhere. You're on the money there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Another one here. All right. There's another way to do this. We're gonna have to cut our board and attach it to the 2x3 and then lift it in place. And here's why. I'm making another wall that goes right here. Okay, that's about it. So I'm gonna do a 4-foot with the OSB attached. And then I'm gonna skip over to this side of the air conditioning lines and then do an 8-foot on this side of the air conditioning lines. I do want to get it as close to this side of the bin as possible because we don't want our span to be anything greater than 24 inches. Okay, all we're looking for is getting this 2x3 hung to the right height so that I can put a drywall screw in that. Put this up right here. So remember, we're going to be doing 5-inch drywall as one continuous piece because the rule about the blocking and the difference, we don't want to have cracks. Sweet, we got a bulkhead. I know when you stand in a room with nothing but a tin can, menacing. So all you gotta do is make sure that if you buy an older house like this, no one in your family is taller than 5'11". Now we're in the process of squeezing in as much insulation into this cavity as we can. Got a piece of R20 up here, I got a piece of R whatever there, and got leftovers. The good news is this works with mass. The more mass you have in a cavity, the quieter it is. Even if you gotta compress it around other obstacles, doesn't really matter. I don't even know if I can get anything underneath here at all. I might be reduced to just doing spray foam. I know it gets messy, but at least the foam can be compressed when we do the drywall. At the end of the day, if I go any lower than this, I run the risk of failing my inspection, my final. Not a chance, right? If I find that I have room at a later date and I want to throw another layer of 5/8 drywall on because it's just not quiet enough, then I'll do that. There you go. Right here. Yeah. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Who did the spray foam?
Oh,
Yeah.
we forgot to spray foam. We forgot to spray foam.
So what we decided is this. We are going to drill a series of holes and then spray foam it. Now, this project, I can't forget because that marker dot is going to show up right through my paint. All right, let's go like this way, 4 feet-ish. Is it gonna hold?
C'est bon.
Oh boy. And I think we're gonna have like 1 inch left over, okay? But that's fine. Whenever you have to do removal, remove more than you want, because you can always go back and add more mud when you put the tape on later. Oh, thanks. You got the same one? Of course, screw that, okay? It's all thread. But if you go in there and it doesn't catch meat, it like augers out the shaft. So it's still there, but it's not really in anything. And it won't just back out. In a lot of cases, there, that's more normal. What you do is you get to go in high speed, and then it'll pop out. And then you can just yank it, all right? All right, so now we only have the sides left to do. Remember our joint issues? The entire bulkhead is now a screw surface, which makes life really, really good if you close that bloody gap, Jeff. Look at that mess. Okay. Somebody put fine thread screws in my coarse thread box. Wonder who that was. Joe, was it you? When you know what you're doing, drywall is actually kind of fun. No college degree necessary here. Don't even need to know math. What's up? I can cut paper. Therefore, I'm a professional drywaller. Tell you, if this job was any easier, everybody would do it. Because nobody learned how to do it properly. All the secrets of the trade are hidden behind a paywall. You know, there's one other thing I never mentioned. Drywall is actually less expensive than the mud to tape the joint. And your time costs money too. So when you're drywalling, always do the biggest piece you can do. And if you have leftovers, throw them in the garbage. Or toss them in the wall as soundproofing because it creates mass. At the end of the day, staggering your butt joints, it's a must if you want to have a nice finish. Never having a joint where you have lumber changing one plane to the next and relying on nails, never do that. It doesn't matter what you do with drywall, it's just drywall. So rule number 10 is as long as you know how to tape, you can fix any mistake you make. And we're gonna tackle that in the next video. I'm gonna show you pretty much every tip and trick that I know, right materials, right processes that you should follow as a homeowner to get a professional result. you can get a better job than you can hire in today's marketplace. Good tapers are working for crews as subcontractors, and they are booked up for years. The guys that are available just learned yesterday, and they didn't learn from me because I hired them and they blew that job right up. I've got to do it all again. So the point is, for you as a homeowner, you're in a good place. You've got the ability to sit down, follow step by step my processes with the tools and the techniques and the mud and how to make your mud. We'll give you all that information. It's absolutely free. No need to buy a course. Just follow the next video. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, and we will see you in the next video. Cheers, next time.